Motorcycles are death machines. I have 3 kids. I'm not risking it.
Are you saying my life matters less because I don't conform to society's heteronormative, child-centric ideals?
Are you really playing the gay card right now?
Yes, Queen.
I see, like, in my Facebook feed, like, some liberal BuzzFeed article, op-ed column in the New York Times about, like, the depiction of LGBTQ characters, and it praises one show over another.
It just feels as good as if I was watching, like, a straight character that I really love on TV, and it just... But at the same time, when I do see that, it's just, it's like bittersweet because it's so rare that I shouldn't be this excited.
Can you list off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, well, Glee.
So obviously there's Glee.
There's Glee.
The entire cast of Orange is the New Black, I guess you could say.
Orange is the New Black is doing great things, I think.
13 Reasons Why.
The one that comes to mind directly is Sense8.
There's a really great movie called Blue is the Warmest Color.
Maureen from Rent.
There's American Horror Story has a few.
Who else? Cam and Mitchell, Modern Family.
There's a girl from this movie called Blue Like Jazz.
And then there's like Transparent, which I haven't seen, but I just hear great things about.
Every once in a while when I'm over at my mom's house and she's watching Days of Our Lives, there's always one little side story that has LGBT characters in it.
Will and Grace.
San Junipero, like the episode of Black Mirror.
Ellen.
I'm pretty sure in Walking Dead there were a couple characters that were gay.
But honestly, that's kind of it. Is that sad? It's kind of sad. That's all I can think of.
How come the number of shows listed per person was only 3.6? After all, 2 of the shows weren't even shows, they were movies. The answer is simple. There aren't that many queer characters on TV. According to an annual study done by GLAAD, of the 895 regular characters which were expected to appear on 116 primetime scripted broadcast shows in 2016 to 2017, 43 characters, or 4.8%, were identified as LGBTQ. This is in contrast to 854 straight characters. On cable, the number of queer characters went up from 84 to 92, and on streaming services it increased from 59 to 65 characters. Of these characters, gay men make up the majority, and well over half of all queer characters are white. Gay men make up roughly 41% of LGBTQ characters, lesbians 25%, bisexuals 30%, the majority of which are women, and trans characters are less than 1%. On broadcast, 42% are people of color, which is significantly higher than its cable and streaming counterparts, which are 28 and 29% respectively.
It just seems so futile, you know? All these women and nothing.
Essentially, it's less than 5% LGBT characters, and if I learned one thing in statistics, it's that less than 5% is meaningless.
You yelled, you denied help, you broke something. That's your first lesson in behaving like a straight man.
You're statistically irrelevant and you're not actually doing anything.
That like hurts my soul. That like actually hurts my soul. That's so terrible. Oh my God. What are we doing?
I feel like once a show, sometimes they'll get like a gay character or whatever, and then they'll be like, okay, we filled our quota.
Can you just tell the others to tone it down a bit?
Sure thing. We all know each other, so I'm just gonna hop on the Rainbow Bat phone and call everyone.
There's so many different identities that all have their own stories to tell, and it's just, they think that they can put one character in and speak for everybody, but that's just not the case.
I love boobs in California, sand in California, boobs in California, and my staying in California. I love dogs in California, hikes in California, but the boobs in California are the greatest boobs around.
The boys are always really feminine, like super feminine.
Flamboyant, the whole sassy, shady kind of a thing.
And the girls are always like super not, like super pretty butch.
Lesbians are a lot of times fetishized. You can just tell that it's like under a male's gaze.
If you go into like bisexual characters specifically, they're super hypersexualized.
It's a bi erasure in the media, and just that bisexuality isn't a real thing, which is annoying.
LGBT characters in general tend to be portrayed as having very loose morals or things of that nature.
The whole idea of the gay best friend, I think that's really toxic, trying to objectify another human being, because then they're just relegated to that space and they're not really given their own personality, or their own story or their backstory.
But I feel like we just need like more push to make these characters more normal, like more like humanize them a little bit instead of like put them as like this mysterious mystic thing that is just only exists in that stereotype.
It doesn't feel human and it doesn't feel natural.
You see just a one-dimensional character, somebody who has no personality, who they have like this one defining trait, and that's the only thing that really constitutes them as a character, and that trait is, oh, well, they're gay, or they're a lesbian, or they're trans, or whatever the case may be.
Like just as bad as not having a gay character, it just does just as much harm. It reinforces so many negative ideas about our community.
You know, like normal characters like that, like we were saying before. That's really sad. That's the sad part. It's like, we have to be represented in this like extreme way, and we can't just be regular people.
Depicting gay characters in media and film shouldn't be hard. Like, we should just depict them as human beings, and the fact that they're gay should just like be like the color of their eyes.
But why is it that LGBTQ characters get treated this way? Film and television's treatment of these characters can be traced back to the beginning of cinema. The first real depiction of gay characters was in the 1895 film The Gay Brothers, which featured two men dancing together. Though harmless enough, this shocked its audience. In the 20s and 30s, gay men were shown as being flamboyant, effeminate, and humorous. They were the butt of the joke. And when film gained sound, these men gained high-pitched voices to match their feminine nature. However, cinema audiences decreased significantly during the Great Depression, and to win viewership back, filmmakers began to include shocking themes and images, which meant a rise in gay men and lesbians on the screen. Not only were gay people being used for shock value, but at this time, the Motion Picture Production Code was created, which heavily censored any films deemed indecent or immoral. This meant that the queer characters were only allowed to be queer subtextually, so they were simply coded as queer. By World War II, the production code allowed sexual perversion, which at the time included homosexuality, but only if it was shown in a negative light, as being gay was equated with having a mental illness.
Ralph was sick, a sickness that was not visible like smallpox, but no less dangerous and contagious, a sickness of the mind. You see, Ralph was a homosexual.
In the 50s, these characters were shown more clearly than before, but in turn, they were shown as miserable misfits who frequently killed either themselves or others, and often deserved a violent death as consequence of being gay. Though by 2017, we are allowed to have out and proud queer characters, many are still killed off for shock value or to progress the story. This is what's known as the bury your gays trope.
I have heard about the bury your gays trope. Basically, anytime you have an LGBT character on your show, you have to kill them. They just always have a tendency to die very soon in a series.
They can't even live. They have to atone for their sins in this way.
How come as soon as they get to be happy, they have to die? Like, literally, like...
So what's the big deal? According to a study done by Autostraddle in March of 2016, 31% of all lesbian and bisexual women on TV shows that are no longer on air died, and 1% lost the love of their life in the finale. 10% were written off, 20% were on shows that were canceled, and 28% were guest characters. This leaves us with only 10% of queer women getting a happy ending. But what does that mean? Well, it means only 30 queer women have gotten happy endings, in comparison to over 18,000 straight characters. In general, bury your gays tends to deal more with queer women because it affects them more frequently than the men. In 2015 to 2016, 29 LGBT characters died, and of that, 22 were women. In 2016, lesbian deaths were so frequent that at the beginning of 2017, the percent of lesbian characters on broadcast dropped 16 percentage points from the beginning of 2016, which is over 25 queer women, bringing them to make up 17% of all LGBT characters. This was violently brought to the attention of the public after the death of the Hundreds' Lexa. Her death was significant as the showrunner promised fans she would be treated well, and pictures were leaked from the set of the season 3 finale, which she was in, purposefully letting fans think she would live to at least the season finale. However, midway through the season, Lexa and protagonist Clark get to have a moment of intimacy after Clark finally lets herself be with Lexa. This scene cut to commercial break, and when the show came back, Lexa, a great and fearless warrior, was accidentally shot. There are many reasons people were upset over this, but the important part is that many young girls who saw themselves in Lexa were left with a sense of hopelessness, feeling that this proved that they themselves could never get a happy ending. The tag "Lexa deserved better" blew up on social media, and countless news sites, including BuzzFeed, BBC, Variety, E! Online, Hollywood Reporter, and many others, wrote articles about the episode and what it meant. But Bury Your Gays is not the only thing affecting the people who watch TV. The stereotypes are just as harmful by forcing people into boxes because of their identities.
People find out that I like girls and be like, well, really? Like, we never knew.
A lot of what I get is, well, you don't look gay, or you don't like walk like you're gay, or something like that.
What does me dressing in any way have to do with anything? Like, I could be in a dress and like girls, and I could be in my sweats and still like girls. It's like people stereotype like what you're supposed to wear, or like how you're supposed to act.
They make it very clear that they're drawing these stereotypes off of TV shows and movies.
It just kind of sucks to see that this is what people think of you, essentially.
TV shapes our society, and society shapes TV.
I definitely am more excited about when we see representation and we see good, positive representation in works that are meant for younger people. You know, it's easier to get them in a place of awareness and understanding, and I feel like they're much more sympathetic and much more willing to like entertain new ideas.
When I think about it, I didn't really see that many LGBT characters on TV until recently.
I was never exposed to it. I know pretty much none of my friends were exposed to it as kids.
I feel like if I did see those characters, I would feel a lot more open earlier on about expressing my identity, and I would feel a lot more confident about it.
If I had seen, bisexual representation growing up, I think I would have figured out my sexuality a lot earlier in my life, because, I would have recognized that that's something that happens. I wouldn't have, if you don't see any kind of representation, you're not necessarily aware that such a thing exists.
If I had seen these people in middle school, then I would be like, okay, I maybe I'm not so weird. Maybe I shouldn't be hiding this. Maybe this is actually okay. Yeah.
So what can you do to help queer representation on TV? The easiest thing to do is support positive LGBT media by watching it, telling others to watch it, and discussing it on social media. This applies to all platforms, TV, film, and online. This is crucial because if studios don't see people watching or talking about this content, they won't want to or won't be able to make more. Helping a show's ratings or buying tickets to see a movie mean the content makes more money, which proves to studios and networks that queer content does not mean losing money. Additionally, talking about what shows are doing right and wrong is important for creators to understand the impact they have and how they can be better, though it's crucial to be respectful while doing so. Discussing this topic with friends and family can increase awareness of these issues so that they can be supportive and help too. If you're straight, remember to let the LGBTQ community speak for itself and respect what they say, though you can still be a part of the discussion and solution. And if you're LGBTQ, you can take progress into your own hands and make queer content yourself.